Welcome to Talking Cards, the Consumer Reports podcast that helps you shop smarter, save more, and feel good about every purchase. I'm Tanya Christian,
And I'm Brian Vines,
and
and
this
this
is
is Talking
Talking Cards.
Carts. Welcome to Talking Carts, everybody. I'm Brian Vines, and with me is my co-host, Tanya Christian.
Brian, we need to figure out how we pay smartly. So let's talk about Klarna, Afterpay, and credit cards with tricks. And, who better to do that than our residents? Credit card expert, Lisa Gill, who's going to tell us all about our payments and how to be an expert at getting these gifts without paying those high fees when January comes.
Yes, Lisa Gill, I have a mattress full of cash that I just unzip and do my holiday shopping. But for all of the folks who are in this century, how should we be paying for this $900 to $1,500 worth of holiday shopping that
Wow.
Americans are doing this year?
Wow. Does anyone take cash still? I guess that's the first question.
But listen, if we're talking about it, that taking cash is the number one way to stay on budget for anything versus the holiday season. Like if you're gonna spend a rack, you just put it in your pocket and peel it off, and when it's gone, go home. Like there's no debt if your wallet is guiding you for the holiday
That's
season.
right.
But that feels very un-American right now. Like go into debt, pay off your holiday. Like there's a number out there that I actually pulled that talks about the number of people who are still paying for things from the year before, and
Oh
it's
my
a
gosh.
very real number.
Yeah, it's scary. Imagine like you are literally still paying from last year's holiday purchases. And
Wild.
now you're gearing up to start deal hunting all over again. And now you're faced with more payment options than truly ever before, I would say. And what's incredible is like, you mentioned like Afterpay, Klarna, Affirm, PayPal, like, and then your own banks even have this like pay in four or even
yeah.
like spread it out over 3 months,
Uh-huh.
6 months, 12 months, 5 years in some cases. And it's like, how do you choose between all of these things? And you start with, I always like, the first question to ask is, what's the biggest purchase I'm going to make? So because the advice here is the easiest. So if you're buying a new mattress, for example, or a computer or a gaming system, TV, something big, I cut it off at like $1,000, but it's
Okay.
something that, if it doesn't show up at your doorstep, you're going to be pretty upset. And so I start there with like my super big purchases. And then I'm going to say to myself, that's what needs to go on the credit card, not the buy now, like pay in 4 model, pay a little bit now and then pay over the next 6 weeks. And I'll tell you why. Those small purchases, those small payments, like the buy now, pay later, don't have purchase protection on them in the way that a credit card does. A credit card by law has a number of protections. If you purchase a TV or a gaming system, you receive it, it's not what was promised, it's not what you think, you're like, this isn't what I bought, or it doesn't work very well, or it never shows up. In those cases, your credit card company will work with you. You can call up, stop the payment, and then work it out. They will help work it out with the merchant. In the case of buy now, pay later, each of these companies has often some sort of mediation, but there's no law that says they have to do that. There's nothing that governs those purchases. So I interviewed a couple people who were like, yeah, I ordered golf clubs, or I ordered like a really expensive piece of musical equipment and it never arrived. Then they couldn't get a hold of the merchant. The merchant was like, well, it looks like it was delivered. They just had this like dispute. But the problem is that all these payments were due. And so the payments are being sent to you every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. And the gentleman was like, in both cases, were like, yeah, I'm not paying on this because I never received it. So this dispute process took like weeks and weeks and weeks to finally resolve. And in one case, it actually never really resolved very well. So you got to be
Really?
really careful about like, am I going to return that item? That's the first question. And is a big important item. You know what I'm saying? That's like,
Yeah, I mean, you always want recourse. Like that is for me. I try to put everything on my credit card, and honestly, like you're talking about people are paying a year later for things they bought. What
Yeah.
I like about at least my Capital One card is everything I've bought throughout this year, I've gotten money back
yeah,
from.
right. There's
Right?
that
So
too. Right.
then
Point.
when the end of the year
Totally.
comes, I have all the money stored up to pay for those Christmas gifts. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about that, Lisa? Like how some of these things work so that people aren't necessarily always pulling out, $1,000, $1,500 to drop on Christmas gifts each year?
But before you do drop that gem on us, Lisa, you may have noticed that Tanya just mentioned her Capital One card. We will name names on this podcast. And that also means we live in the real world, but our real world at Consumer Reports is an unsponsored, independent world. We
Right.
are member funded. And anytime that we mention a retailer, it's because we know that you know who we're talking about. It's not at all an endorsement of those people. We accept no adverts. You will hear no commercials. Consumer Reports is completely independent. We buy what we test. We are free from
Every time.
influence and all ad dollars. So you're going to hear Capital One, you're going to hear Target, you're going to hear Walmart, you're going to hear Amazon. But those people have no dog in this fight. They are not supporting us in any way. So we say it because that's how we live it, but we are living free from their influence. Lisa, back to
I
you.
Absolutely.
love that. I'm so glad you brought that up. And I it's like the best part of being a part of Consumer Reports by far. I mean, you're totally right, Brian. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And in thinking about, Tanya, like making these purchases, big purchases and putting them on credit cards, I'm thinking of it from the consumer protection standpoint. And you're completely right. You can get reward points, like 1% cash back. I mean, there are a number of benefits often to putting really big purchases on a credit card. Now, many of these companies, Klarna, Sezzle, PayPal, Affirm, they will tell you, oh, if you are a repeat customer, you'll also see benefits and bonuses and you can collect points. But I will say this, it's often so that you can make more purchases using those payment methods through
Mm.
their own, basically like their digital mall, which is typically on an app on your phone or tablet. And so you'll get some benefit, but it's nowhere close to what you would, as far as we can tell, what you would get with credit cards. But I will say, like, the big, like, I like to start, like, when we're thinking about, like, okay, well, how am I gonna budget for all of my holiday shopping? It's those big purchases. Start to try to make room on credit cards if you can't pay for it in cash. As you get down to that mid tier and low tier. So for low tier, I would say like your stocking stuffers. It's like, I celebrate Christmas, so it's a lot of stockings in my family. Um, those minor purchases, like starting to get under $40. I would say also avoid buy now, pay later for the little things. And there's a reason for that. If you start to stack a bunch of loans, oh, $40 here, $40 there, $40 over here. Every statistic shows, including Consumer Reports' very own nationally representative survey, the more of these buy now, pay later loans that you have, it's almost certain you will miss a payment.
Mm.
And you can, so part of our advice is always
Say that.
set up auto pay for any kind of, like, whether it's a credit card or whether it's a long-term like installment loan or a regular buy now, pay later loan. But the more you have of these little tiny loans, you could get yourself in super hot water super, super fast. So avoid the buy now, pay laters for the little purchases. It's when
Mhm.
you get into those mid-range purchases where it's like not the end of the world if the scarf and the sweater don't show up at your front doorstep. You're
Yeah.
probably not going to need to return them. And I will say this, a lot of consumers actually report being very satisfied with their buy now, pay later, like using that as a way to pay for all kinds of purchases. And that they say, hey, I've been so satisfied, I'm going to use it again. It's just that, you can really get into trouble on that super
Yeah.
high end purchase or on the low end purchase. So in my mind, it's like the middle tier purchase. And then there's one final bucket of things to always avoid, and that is stuff that you know you're going to return. So if
Mm.
you, so like for my, I order multiple sweaters or multiple shoes, try them on, and then send the ones back that don't fit. I would say, based on all the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau complaint database, along with consumers that we've spoken to, if you are trying to return things, you can get yourself in such hot water so fast because you're waiting for that return to
Right.
get, basically credited back to your account, and you've got to make those payments still. And a
And
lot of people don't want to make the payment.
those people still want their money. You're like, I don't have
Yeah,
those
right.
shoes. And they're like, listen, run me my money.
And
Like,
they don't
I don't
care.
care if you don't have
That's
those
right.
shoes.
No, that's 100% right. And so here's the crazy thing. So, for like a buy now, pay later, for like the
Mm.
little tiny, like paying for, right? A
Yeah.
lot of times these companies don't check your credit report, credit score. They'll just give you the loan, right? And you
Right.
think, oh, and that's actually a reason that lots of people,
Do it.
decide to use them. I totally understand that. And they want to keep these purchases off a credit card. But what happens is you think, oh, if I miss a payment or I'm maybe late or whatever, it's not going to be a big deal. But it is a big deal. The companies all retain the right to report you in to the credit bureaus if you're late or missed a payment altogether. And then you
Really?
wind up getting this huge hit on your credit report, which takes a freaking 7 years to like undo it. It's extremely, and I will tell you this. This is so important. If you
Hmm.
miss a $20 payment, it's the same as missing a $2,000 payment. There's no difference. In the world of the credit bureaus, it's a missed payment no matter how much it is.
So conversely, they reserve the right to report to the credit bureau if you
Exactly.
missed that
Negative.
$20. But can these be used as credit building tools? Do
Not
they at the
really.
end of our term? So like if I
No.
was on Klarna, for example, and I got all my payments in and I was stellar, they don't call up Equifax and say, you really should
Yeah,
increase
right.
Brian's
They don't give you the
credit card by
digital.
100.
Yeah, they're going to give you a
Really?
digital pat on the back, unfortunately.
Oh,
Sezzle, actually, I will say this. Sezzle has a program where you can
hmm.
opt in to
Yeah.
make sure that all your positive, like your actual payments are captured, and then it goes toward your credit report. And I will say this, if these companies are changing up their terms all the time. But if
Yeah.
anyone out there is listening and you're going to use a pay in four, if you get the option to report it, like all positive payments on your credit report, I actually think it's a pretty good thing to do if
Go for it.
if you don't have a lot of other information in there. And I know it's like we're talking about holiday purchases, and no one ever thinks like, oh, credit reports, credit scores. It's like
Yeah.
the goofy geek consumer reporter in me, but you got to think of this stuff because, like, in case you can't make a payment or you
Yeah.
accidentally miss it, you could be in pretty serious trouble.
You do,
So
and
you
that also points out, like, you have to read the fine print on these things, right?
You
Like, do
can, yeah,
not get into any of these without understanding, well,
yeah.
how much is the interest payment? What if I do miss a payment? What is going to
Oh,
happen? Because, you think like, oh, this is easy. I'll put some money down and that'll be the way I get it. And it can blow up
it can blow
really
up in your
quickly
yeah,
from
face
there.
really bad.
everybody who's read the terms and conditions stand on your head right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
No
there's
one, no
impossible.
one.
It's impossible. But I'm glad you mentioned interest, because so pay in fours are often no interest. But when you go to make a payment, you will be most people are presented with multiple options. And we've interviewed consumers where they believed, so the multiple options are like, you can pay this over 8 weeks, you can pay it
Mhm.
over 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or longer. And
Yeah,
it can be very like confusing because you're going into it like, oh, it's a no interest for these other longer terms. And
sure.
then when you go to apply, it turns out, in fact, there is interest, and the interest can be like, it will keep you gobsmacked at how high some of these, it's like almost 30%, even into the
Really?
35% range. So you do not want to be financing holiday purchases at 35%. Like, don't do it. If that's the
That
only way to buy something, don't buy it. Make something.
that
You're just
is
like, don't do this.
absolutely news you can use. I didn't know that that was a thing because I was
Yeah,
aware that I was aware of the four and you don't pay kind of thing, but I wasn't aware that that was a whole thing that
it's
they could
yes.
charge interest if you go beyond those four. That's That's big.
A lot of interest. And you know what? In some cases, it's compounded. It's like, it's monthly.
Oh,
It's not going to be like, oh, it's a 15%
one
interest on,
time. Yeah.
yeah, on that single purchase. No way. It's going to be every single month. You could wind up paying like so much more money for this item that you could have put on a credit card or maybe not purchased at all. So and those are also like you miss a payment, and not only is it going to go negative on the credit report, they can come with debt collectors after you.
We
It's
never want that.
serious business. So you gotta be careful.
Serious
And it makes
business.
it, the thing is, like, when you go check out, it looks so easy. You're like, oh, should I
Yeah.
use a credit card? Should I use Apple Pay? Or hey, I could pay in four. You click on that, you're going to get all these options, and it's just like, oh, no interest, no fees. Sounds good. But when you get into anything beyond the 8 weeks, you're looking at fees for sure and interest for sure. So they should, and we've asked the companies, hey, don't make it in the fine print. Make sure that people are super, super clear about what they're
Right.
signing on to. But when you start doing stuff on a phone, it's like the screen is like this big. It can, it's like, who can read all that stuff? So just be careful.
It's easier to click and move on.
Yeah, it's like, all right, it's like
I'll
it's
think about
crazy
it.
out there. Yes, that's
Things were so much simpler when you could just go down to the TJ Maxx and put it on the layaway.
no,
Like
right?
where you would just go every Friday when you got your little check and put down
I totally did this.
$15.
Yes,
I
But
was
yes.
thinking that. I believe my mom used to go in a casual corner every Saturday, just
Casual
put the
corner.
money
Oh my
down,
God.
and then
Yeah.
eventually she has to sell it.
Yeah, so
but
that's like proper layaway. Like that's like, and
Yeah.
that's good. They didn't charge you for that,
no, that's
No.
that good old analog buy
Yes.
now, pay later. But I was able to find this number we've been skirting around. So
Oh yeah.
according to the folks at Nerd Wallet,
Yeah.
20 to 28% of Americans last year in 2024 were still paying for Christmas gifts that they had bought the
Ooh,
previous year in 2023. So fully a quarter of
Oh,
American consumers
that's
last year numbers,
crazy.
they haven't released them for this year. 23 to 28% of us were still paying for stuff that we had bought the previous year when holiday rolled around again. So, that being said, I want to ask you, Lisa, about whether I should be taking advantage of these great deals they're offering me while I'm standing in line at the store to get 10% off of my purchase now just by applying. If you're in one of the JC Penney's of the world, if that still exists. Because remember, they'd always be like, oh,
yeah.
if you apply for our card now, like we'll tell you instantly whether
Yeah.
you get it and
No.
you save 10%. So should I be doing that? Is that a viable
Yeah. Check
strategy
this
for a
out.
holiday?
Check this out. So here's what happens in the background. So you're like, oh, I'm going to save 10%, which by the way is actually not that
It's not
much.
a lot.
And what's going to happen is they're going to run. They're basically going to, like, you're going to fill out a little thing yeah, it's fine. Check my credit report. Right. So when they do that, you're going to get dinged.
Uh-huh.
That's no good. So even though they might say, oh, it's like, and they might even say no, no effect on your credit. Right. But what's happening is, because you have approved it, it is considered credit seeking behavior. So it gets logged in the algorithm that you're checking in on your credit to see, like, hey, can I get this credit card? So that's the first problem. And then that goes into its own algorithm when it's creating scoring for you. If you're trying to, I would say this, if you're trying to buy a house or a car or get a student loan or do something much more serious than saving 10% at TJ Maxx or Kohl's or any of these places that have store cards, yeah, avoid store cards like the plague, because there's nothing good that's going to come out of it. It's not going to help your credit at all. And then the other problem is, it's well known that store cards have, just like buy now pay later, when you have installment loans, have very, very high interest rates, like in the 30%. So all that discounted stuff, 30%, like interest rate per month on anything that's sitting on that card. So all the great deals that you just got at TJ Maxx, which I
Out the
freaking
window.
love, goes down the drain in interest and fees and the hit to your credit. Don't do it.
May I drop just a little bit of knowledge as well? So,
Jeez.
according to the Federal Reserve of New York, if you make payments of $150 a month on a balance of $6,492 and you pay an interest rate of 22.25%, I know I'm saying a lot of numbers. So imagine your credit card balance is $6,400, almost $6,500, and you pay $150 a month on it at 22% interest. You will be paying 7 years to pay that off at the minimum interest rate. And you would have paid an extra $6,900. So that $6,400 credit bill, if you pay the minimum, it takes
Is
7 years and you
twice
would
as
have
much.
paid 6,900, more than twice as much. So that credit card game is something that you should be aware of. But have you heard of this 234 rule for credit cards?
No, tell us about it.
So,
Okay.
thanks for the setup. The 234 rule means for credit cards, it's a guideline for application frequency. So, the suggestion is you can get two new credit cards in 30 days, three within a year, or four within 2 years. So this is some kind of
Wow.
rule that says two, three, four. So if you're thinking about applying for all those credit cards in the checkout line, this is a rule that a lot of people live by to keep you limited. So essentially, you should have
How is that
four credit
limited?
cards.
Man, that sounds
Two,
like that sounds
two cards in
indulgent.
30 days.
Well,
That sounds
that's for your
indulgent.
whole credit life. They're saying like just have four credit cards, essentially, is what they're saying, but over the course of 2 years. So you guys are balking at this 234 rule.
It's
Well,
too
don't
much.
I mean, don't forget, like each of those cards could have a $10,000 balance.
Yeah.
You're going to be adding. I mean, one, there's something to be said about having a couple of cards,
Yeah.
but nowhere like you shouldn't even approach the maximum. You want to be at
Yeah.
like that 30% or less of whatever credit there is. I
Yeah.
I I don't know. Maybe I'm like a Midwestern dork and I'm just like, oh my God, keep those away from me. Because
No,
I mean
same.
I'll freaking spend
That's
it.
me
I will
too.
use it.
Yeah.
Like
That's it. But plus, like, that's too many um dates to remember for
yeah,
me.
too many things to manage.
No, seriously. It's
Yeah.
like I'd rather go to my if I need, more of a line, I'd rather
Sure.
just go to the credit card company I have and say, "Hey, could you try extending my line a little bit? So let's say
Yes.
the limit is 10,000. Can you up
Right.
it to 20,000? I've been paying my bills regularly for the last year. Like
Yeah.
I show that I pay my debts."
Hey, you
And
know
then
what?
opening up a new credit card.
That's a great, that's a great tip, and there's two good reasons to do it. For one, you're going to be keeping all those bonus points and all of that purchasing power remains with the card that you've had probably the longest. And then also credit history, like how long you've been with the credit card company, totally counts in your favor. Like the longer, and both at the credit card company and bank
Sure.
and in the credit bureau world, in the credit reporting world, credit scores, like you want that long history. So if you show up and you're like, oh, I've got three new cards in 2 years, it doesn't look great. Nobody likes that. They're like, huh, you look like you want a lot of credit and your scores take a big hit. The algorithms definitely do not like that.
Well, one of the things too that Tanya pointed out that's genius, she said that caveat, listen, I paid my bill on time for the
Yeah,
last year. You
exactly.
know, Consumer Reports in September of 23, we had a nationally representative survey that found that an estimated 52 million people paid a credit card late fee within the last 12 months. So we got to get better at making sure that those payments come on time, because even if you're paying just the minimum you could do is
Yeah.
pay it on time, because it really will impact you. And even if you pay that credit card and you're still paying for last year's gift, if you're paying on time, it's better.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and that's easier to do when you don't have five credit cards to keep track of.
Exactly. Exactly.
God bless. So, walking out the door, Lisa, what are the top two things that we should know about buy now, pay later versus credit card shopping this holiday season?
Just remember, purchases made on credit cards have a lot of protections around them. If you don't like what you purchased or the company's giving you a hard time or you never receive it, that credit card company can help quickly get it off of your bill and work with you to resolve it with the merchant. Buy now, pay later is a totally different animal and can be a huge struggle. So just be careful if you use buy now, pay later for purchases that get into the very expensive space or things that you might need to return. That's my big, and and who doesn't return things after the holiday season, right? Like you're buying gifts for other people that like they don't like it, it doesn't fit, not the right color, not the right merchant. You could wind up with all this buy now, pay later stuff that's got to get returned, and it's going to be an administrative. It's not a nightmare, but it's like a lot to worry about. It's just not
For
as easy as credit cards. And then overall, of course, with like just the use of credit, I mean, if you need to take out loans and take out credit cards to make holiday purchases, like maybe you can't afford it, you know? Maybe just like take a
That's
step
fair.
back and just be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to make some stuff or do something nice for somebody or like create gift certificates of, give my time and not
Mhm.
necessarily have to buy something and
Yeah.
wrap
Or
it
I
up.
maybe
think
like a
Lisa
white
Gill
elephant for
just
the
called y'all
family, so you only
broke.
have one gift to buy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes,
Like, let's
exactly.
pick names out of a hat this year.
Yeah, do exactly instead of like overbuying for everybody,
Well, I think
100%.
Lisa Gill just called y'all broke. It's like,
Well, I mean,
if
I
you,
think
if
that
you
this is
don't
half
have
the
it,
problem. Like we
right,
get into debt
man.
so easy because we
Yeah.
just like we're like, well, I've got 20,000 available on the card. Let me see how I can spend it
Right.
until
And then budget goes out the window.
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
I love that. So, Lisa Gill, you can read her genius work at
Oh,
consumerreports.org. She's written so much about this subject. We'll
thank
link
you.
below to her articles on buy now, pay later. And Lisa also happens to be a genius when we're talking about pharmaceuticals and medical debt and keeping you right. She'll make sure your credit score leads you to a home purchase if that's what you want. We'll talk about that in future episodes. But Lisa,
Nice.
thank you so much for dropping in on Talking
Y'all are the
Cart.
best. Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming.
Genius. Lisa did just mention how you might run into a little speed bump if you are buying and returning with buy now, pay later. But looking at the broader retail landscape, shopping for holiday, if you're going to be in there from November 1st through December 31st at Best Buy, you have until January 14th to return those purchases. So this is for all you early birds who are buying things for other folks. Make sure that if they want to exchange it or do something, they know they have until January 14th. If you're a Macy's shopper, any purchase between October 7th and December 31st has to be returned by January 31st. So they give you to the end of the month. And if you got Nordstrom money, you're in there making purchases between October 6th and December 24th. They're eligible for return until January 15th or 40 days after that for online purchases, whichever is later. So if you're in there, Nordstrom from October to December, you have until January 15th or a little bit longer.
Yeah, and if you're making your purchases on Amazon, they do have a 2025 extended holiday return policy. That's going to start on November 1st and go all the way through December 31st. If you've made purchases during that period, you have until January 31st to return items. So it's longer than their typical 30-day period. Now, that's on everything except for Apple brand products, which can be returned through January 15th, 2026. So you still get a little time.
Okay.
Now, Walmart, if you're going in store, going online, most items purchased between October 1st and December 31st can also be returned prior to January 31st. So that actually January 31st is your last day to return it. So do not sit on it. Don't sit on it. Get those returns out. And then Target, if you are shopping at Target this holiday season, their return policy, their extended return policy goes from November 7th, 2025 until December 24th. And so most electronics and entertainment items are included in that, except for Apple and then Beats products. So the window is extended to January 24th on those products. And for Apple products, Beats products, and mobile phones, the deadline is January 8th, 2026. And then, of course, Target Circle 360 members get an additional 30 days for return. So there's always that benefit.
Genius. And our friends over at Costco,
We love Costco.
Costco, the king of returns over there. So they have a very flexible and generous that essentially has no limit over at Costco because I've seen some things in that line. But electronics, they keep it tight to a 90 days. So if you're buying things now, just be conscious that you have 90 days to return electronics to Target. And just as one last note on the holiday return policy timetables, for our friend Wendy and Happy Eddie over there, if you happen to be a Gucci shopper, they accept returns within 30 days from the date of delivery for online orders or when you purchase them. So if
I
y'all
love that
happen
you
to
point out
be
Gucci.
buying
You
things
got
at
that Gucci money.
Gucci and returning, you got that Gucci money for the Osefos. You got 30 days if you know you know. Thank you for hanging out with us. If you want more or you want to see it again, always head over to cr.org, our home on the web. We're on all of the social platforms. You can find us there. Like and subscribe and share with your friends. Become a member to make sure CR stays independent. Notice there were no commercials during this podcast because we don't take money from anyone. We are member funded and independent, and that's why we can tell the truth as we educate, advocate, and investigate all of the products that are in the marketplace. So thanks for joining us. Always stop by cr.org and we'll be in touch.